Odd to start this off with an apology, but that's where I'm going. I said I would record before I left Kenya. I didn't. I said I would have it out before Thursday of week 6. I didn't. Other than that, come on, can you blame me? There's cool people to hang out with Kenya. And I didn't even get to see all of you, which is a mad bummer. I will be coming back at some point sooner than later. So I'll give you more of a heads up so we can all get together. But thanks for those who found me in one of the random stops I was in. Anyway, I don't want to just obsess about week 6, even though we're getting dangerously close to it being week 6. First, we got to focus on week 5. Tons happened. Let's get down to it. Week 5 NFL recaps going to exist in that world right between NFL and fantasy to keep our interests. First thing, though, I have to kind of talk about 34-0. I know there's some past fans out there, and I don't think in my lifetime I've seen this, well, since probably about the 90s. One of the worst losses in the Belichick reign, which does get people start talking about changes and whether or not he wants to be there for much longer. You can go on a lot of articles that talk about how he's chasing potentially the all-time coaching lead. I don't know if that's true. If it is, someone like Andy Reid is 30 behind him, but has Mahomes and a couple extra years. So if he wants that win, he maybe New England is not the place for him. But right now, one of the worst parts I think they have on the go, especially if you've taken New England, they actually do have a talented defense. Unfortunately, they're hurt, and there's not much more they can do about that. Also, his coaching staff, he's hired a bunch of his kids, which I know Nepo babies is a bit of a thing, and if you are one, then maybe you're going to defend it a bit more. I don't mind if there's a Nepo baby in our entertainment industry, if they're the heads of state or politics, or if they're 2/3 of our Ivy League undergrad class. But to have them in your NFL coaching staff seems a bit extreme. I think that's a bit too important. We got to draw the line somewhere. But that brings me to my second topic. We have the haves. We do have a group of that healthy middle class, but we certainly are now seeing a lot of the tanking teams. New England may just be one of them. Now, tanking is a strong word. I don't want to throw that out. We don't know yet that some of those teams are trying to buff it, but New England with 1 win. We know Carolina now is our only team left with 0 wins. They will not be tanking because if you remember, they actually don't own their own draft pick, so there's no advantage to them finishing dead last, whereas some of these teams there will be. The Bears actually have their pick, but the Bears are another one of those teams that now just got their first win and have looked great in the last 2 weeks, which I'm sure all the Bears fans would love to shove in my face after me being quite unkind to them in the first couple weeks. But, I mean, if you are the Bears, like your mother always told you, having 2 top 5 picks in an NFL draft that's meant to be loaded with talent is always better than 1. I would put Minnesota on that list, Arizona on that list, Denver on that list, the Giants now with a few injuries, which we'll get to in a second. All these teams might be competing not just for who's the best, but who can get that pick. Remember, for those who don't know or don't follow the college game, USC's Caleb Williams is touted to be probably the number 1 pick, at least as it stands right now, barring some massive injury. He breaks all his femurs or something. But this is also supposed to be one of the more talented quarterback classes in the recent years. So don't be shocked, fantasy owners, if all of a sudden some of your teams start making some odd decisions. Might give us a chance to take some rookies or some people that are underused in some of those offenses because some trades might be happening if you've been paying attention. And we have the Tankapalooza game with the Vikings and the Bears going at it this weekend. Both teams have a vested interest in both winning and in losing. Some trade talk already for people like Kirk Cousins and getting him out. So keep your eye on it because I do think this is why it's an NFL-based thing, but it is going to have a massive impact on our fantasy teams. Not all the teams are obviously tanking. We do have 2 undefeated teams still, the Eagles and the 49ers. And in fact, the league is really kind of starting to separate. Those halves are certainly a little more than you might think. Now, not everyone goes super nerdy with their stats. There's one that tries to amalgamate stats together. It's called DVOA. It's commonly used by a lot of people who liked their math in with their football, defensive adjusted value over average. It kind of gives you a holistic rank of both the offense and the defense. The top 4 in offense are actually the top 4 in defense, just in a different order. Probably the top tier, though, we got San Francisco, number 1 ranked in defense, number 2 in offense. You don't get a whole lot better than that. There's really only one way they can improve. But the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Lions all are top 4 in both offense and defense. A team like the Eagles, also undefeated, they're 5th and 7th respectively. Then you get teams like the Chiefs that are 6th in both, the Seahawks that are 7th in both. So there's certainly some teams that are on just the outskirt. But those top 4, that's actually pretty impressive. You don't see that very often. So leading us into a game like or a week like this, it does give us no real direct matchups between those two. We've had a couple in the last couple weeks. I mean, the Bills and the Dolphins played a couple weeks ago. We had the 49ers and the Cowboys, but neither of those were monster games. So this really does lead us to believe that this week, if you don't really have any of those epic matchups, we have a couple middle ground, like 3-2 and 2-3 teams going at it. We definitely have some high and some low going off against each other. So one thing to bear in mind, NFL is almost never going chalk. There's always going to be a couple upsets. So again, for fantasy owners who might be looking to cover, maybe some injuries, which I'll talk about in a second, or some bye weeks if you have some Packers and Steelers, maybe taking a flyer on one of those teams that isn't supposed to do well, and maybe you can put up an upset. If you can predict it right, you can get paid off huge. Last thing to talk about then is, unfortunately, the injuries. A monster week in injury. Every week seems to be a monster week in injuries. But this one, we had top-tier guys like quarterbacks. They don't always go out. But Richardson, again, second time out. This one sounds like he's going to be out for a couple more weeks. Daniel Jones and his neck. I heard there's some things in your neck you got to take care of, so that's no good. Watson may or may not be injury. Apparently his shoulder injury might have something to do with it, but he's missing his second week in a row, and rumor has it might not just be the injury. There might be something else afoot. But realistically, I think the big injury, Jefferson, in a lot of leagues, he went number one. If he didn't go number one, he probably went second. This is a pretty big one. Now it's hamstring, which can be iffy. Again, you need those to run and to push, and because the Vikings are someone that are thinking about maybe not making a run for the postseason since considering their start. Who knows when he's going to be back? So I know fantasy owners are going to have to figure that one out. Achane, I mean, sorry, I know those who took him, pick him up off the waiver wire. You probably spent a lot to do so. He looks like he's out for a couple weeks. High ankle sprain are three of the worst words you can hear in that order. If you're a fantasy owner, those can be things that last quite a bit. Then you got other running backs. You got Connor out, Herbert out, possibly Johnson, Herbert's replacement, also out. So there should be a lot of movement on the waiver wires, and most of it by now has already been done. Gibbs, sorry, is also out. Olave, I know, is a question mark. St. Brown missed last week. Of course, now that means we're getting into projection territory, which is more about week 6, which I would love to focus on because the first 5 weeks haven't exactly been awesome for everybody. But before we do so, we do need to look at week 5. How did we get to where we are now fantasy-wise, and what does that mean? Which means it's time for the matchups. I mean, in all ways, it was just kind of Reshke's weekend, I guess, because he probably didn't even know it was, well, I'm going to tell you, he had no idea on Sunday what was happening. He did know Thursday, so he already knew he pretty much had 100 points and probably had this in lockdown. Even if he checked 5 or 6 times, I was with him on Sunday. I'm going to go ahead and say I don't 100% know if he was following along, but utter domination. We keep talking about pushing 200. How high are we going to go here? 225? We get into 250 next week? Unfortunately, Tim, you were on the receiving end of this one, although there's a few things you probably could have done, so you might want to be paying attention. But how this broke down, let me start with the disappointments for Kent. Your tight end, meh, but sad as it is, 6 to 8 points from your tight end right now is about okay. Your running backs kind of sucked, and now one of them's hurt. Now both of them are hurt, sorry. Sanders is now officially out for the next round. And Dallas is normally one of your top scorers, and they got a bagel. Everybody else went off. All right, you have a laundry list of our top 5. In fact, you have the 2 top scoring quarterbacks of the week in Fields and Allen. Fields is really just throwing it in my face after making fun of him for so long. 2 out of the top 3 wide receivers in Moore and Hill. Chase is the only one that got into the top 3 that you didn't have, but it's not exactly like Hopkins was a slouch. Frickin' Myers scores 20 points. Like, no one on my team scored 20 points. So that was a pretty impressive outing. Now, you didn't have a whole lot on your bench, and Watson might have some funny business if you have some bye weeks coming up at some point. But I think for right now, you're doing fine. If Chicago can keep the momentum going, you can keep your 200 streak going. Who knew the Bears would be the powder keg that just ignited you in this case? Timmy, I'm sorry, pal. I mean, you just seem to have injury unluck. Jones, maybe you should have been paying attention. He got pulled at the llast second. Could have put an Achane. I don't think it would have helped. But at least, could have given you a little bit of life. I would definitely start making that move because sadly, you've got one IR receiver to replace your other IR crazy wide receiver. But at least Cup is back in town, and so that should be good news for you. But 2 big guys going on the IR, not awesome for you. On the plus side, Laporta's been a great pickup. He's the 5th overall tight end this week. Hall had a decent week, and so he's had a couple bounce back week. He was a running back 3, but no one was going to beat Kent in this particular day. Oh, and Howell, by the way, he was our QB3. So all three of the top three quarterbacks were playing in this game, which is kind of nice. Regroup, Timmer. You got a big week next week, but Kent, how high are you going to go, buddy? Speaking of Kent, we had another Kent go off in a laugher on this one. Unfortunately, for Rennie, he didn't quite hit predicteds. We'll get to why. And Kent, more than Max's predicteds. In most weeks, you'd be the number one scorer of the week. You just didn't have enough Bears, apparently, on your roster. You did have Chase, though. He was our wide receiver 1 in our particular format, so congratulations. You know, if I would have shown this to Rennie beforehand and he could only see McCaffrey's performance, he probably thought he had a good shot. Now, when McCaffrey goes low, apparently as long as he doesn't get hurt, knocking on wood, not trying to jinx anything, he still gets a touchdown, so that's not bad. Your wide receiver crew came out, and I mean, Addison could be getting more love with Jefferson on the shelf. I think the big thing you got to look at, obviously, Richardson going down again. This one looks like he might be off for another 4 weeks. So we are going to have to dig into your bench to see, but spoiler, Goff did all right. He was our quarterback 5, and Bears offense looks like, or sorry, not Bears. Well, Bears offense, yes. Lions offense, looking okay. So maybe not the worst thing in the world, but definitely that's going to be something you have to look into. Crazy enough for you, Rennie, Burrow finally burrowed, or I guess reverse burrowed and went up instead of down. Great news for you. Kelsey had another great game. Okay, getting into the end zone. Good news for you. The Kansas City in general has been treating you well. All right, Pacheco's been an awesome pickup and not one that everyone knew for sure he'd go off this year. And London had a good matchup for you. It was just, I mean, this top 4 here, your wide receivers and Dax just killed you. Especially double whammy down here. Those 3 interceptions hit you both ways. Kent or San Francisco showing who the big swinging D is here, and it's not Dallas, unfortunately. I think Gabe Dave outscored all of your wide receivers and Dak, so that's not a great sign. On your bench, yeah, you had some options and some stuff you need to look at for next week, but you did all you could on this one. Even you had the only Bear who did not go off on Thursday night, so when it rains, it pours, I'm afraid, pal. But regroup. You're going to get your first win. I can feel it. Unless you're playing me, I really got to start checking that before I do this part of it. I know you will, though, pal. Stay positive. You got this. Maxon, well done, buddy. 3-2. You're top 4 in the league. I mean, top 3 in the league, but that's still top 4 in the league. Let's see how you do running into week 6. Speaking of first wins, Dibbler on the board with a big one. Congrats, pal. How you did it. I mean, Purdy was monstrous. This one, I mean, no Higgins, no problem, I guess. But he's been killing people in general. Just mesh between Cincinnati's inconsistent offense and him. Now everyone that has Chase is pretty happy that he's been loopy, but you didn't let it stop you. Etienne and Montgomery, that's a monster running back combo, and in fact, those are our 2 and 3 in terms of overall running backs this week. Stafford had a great performance. Purdy did fantastic, not in our top 5, but real close. And that was enough to kind of get you going. And then Kittle, obviously 3 touchdowns. Crazy enough, not our tight end 1. That was Goddard, but that's because he only had 3 catches for his 3 touchdowns. So, you know, beggars can't be choosers. On your bench, you made all the right calls. Obviously, you're dealing with a bye week. Hey, if you can have half your guys down in a bye and still get the W, congrats to you. Marco, unfortunately, I know I saw you tracking, and this is the 2nd week in a row. You got to watch yourself that Jacksonville got off to a start, and you said the words. This time I saw you say them. Wow, I started Kirk again. He's going off. Just stop saying it, because it jinxes you each time you do it. You had no love this week and no tight end, and then Connor got hurt. Pollard, sneaky candidate for disappointing player of the start right now. I have him in another league. I've been keeping track of him. He's supposed to keep going off. When's that going to happen? Daniel Jones, you're going to have to deal with a bit of a neck injury. And like I said in my intro there, necks are important, especially with Mac Jones as the guy on your bench. I think you've already addressed this problem, but I'm not 100% sure. And Washington, just with a stinker. You would have thought with Chicago they were going to get some points, but you knew this going in, at least to the week. It's the benefit, the pro and the con of the Thursday night game. On the plus side for you, it looks like Denver's running back was a massive pickup. Thielen actually had a top 5 wide receiver performance, so a lot on the positive here. You do have love on the bye week and some injury issues, so let's see how that pans out for you in week 6, because you're going to want to rebound after a couple weeks. Jeff, congrats on the W, pal. Here's hoping to keep momentum going into week 6. You knew Woody was going to take this on as a challenge, going up against the undefeated number one, Connor and Sheamus. He took a big swing. It was only 4.34 off. So let's check it out because there actually could have been a move to swing the tide. Starting off with our championship leaders here. They got the belt. They're the number one seed. How are they keeping on? Honestly, if you look, they didn't really have like a monster performance. I don't even think they had anybody here in the top 5 in their position, but almost everybody was double digits. So add it all together, and calculators kind of work that way. Mahomes keeps kind of just almost hitting predicteds. His wide receivers, obviously, in terms of the pickup and Pakanakua and Diggs were fantastic. Lamb, but that was against a tough D. Did just enough to get by. I mean, Dobbs had a stinker, but didn't really need him. Showing your bench. You did have the running back one on the bench, so this could have been a little bit more, you could have breathed a little easier, let's put it that way. And then Ridley, obviously, could have helped you out. Now, who you would have come in for, I don't know, maybe Pittman probably, so it could have helped you a bit. Matty, unfortunately, pal, you did have Hurts, which was our quarterback 4. Brown obviously had a good game, and that killer combo obviously carries you. Moving forward with the injuries, Mozart's going to look okay because with A-Chain out, he should be getting a little bit more love. Goddard was our tight end 1, and finally they've looked up, this little Philly combo you got going on here. Maybe they're going to start to look up the plays that involve Goddard again, and obviously in this case, not at Brown's expense. The biggest one, we can't keep our eyes off it. Yeah, Nico Collins underperformed, but it's Barkley that killed you. Even if you would have just put in Gus the Bus, the 4.8 would have won it by about 0.4. Sorry, pal, that always kind of stinks when you can look back in anger, but what can you do? You took a big shot. It's not costing you too much. You're still 3-2. You're still top 4, but it would have been nice to have the undefeated wiped off the table. Connor, Sheamus, you live to play another day on this one. You still got the belt. You're still up at the top of the mountain, so let's see how high you can go or how far you can go with your undefeated streak. With Marco's team scoring 95 in any other week, that's going to be our low point, but it wasn't any other week. It's the week I decided to go under 95, so you're welcome, sir. Gene, you took it to me here. You didn't even hit your predicteds, but you didn't even need to. Taking a look, Stroud's been obviously consistent for you. I can't believe you started Tannehill and you beat me. Oh, my God, this sucks. But your running backs were all right. Mixon almost hit predicteds. Jacobs had a great week for him. He hasn't always had a consistent production, but he was just outside of the top 5. So you got to be happy with that. Similar to what I said to some of our other number 1 seeds, it's not like you had anyone just absolutely go off. Just everyone did all right. If your stinker is really Detroit's defense that got you 7 or your flex in Williams having a disappointing week, that's not really the worst thing that can happen, right? And we look at your bench, you didn't leave too much. Tiaje Spears looks like he might be someone you want to keep a hold on, and Mims might be someone you want to keep out of the lineup, but you made all the choices you were supposed to. For me, any week you can say, wow, I should have actually started David Carr. Yeah, that sucks. There's nothing I can say about that. Jackson underperformed. Kamara did all right. That is all. So the dominates, I'll take it on that one. Unfortunately, that was one of my chances to make a bit of a leap. Now I'm kind of in that 3-2 mix with a lot of people, but I'm back in Geneva. I'm actually paying attention. I will fully say that not only was it Kent that was not fully following this, I'll go ahead and say I was doing something on Sunday, so I was keeping up with it to a certain extent. There's some photo evidence to suggest that I was not interested in picking up anyone on the waiver wires, but physically picking up a groom or soon-to-be groom. So you take the loss where you take the loss. I'm back in Geneva, so hopefully I can focus for week 6, but not taking anything away from you, Gene. Congratulations. You're top 5 in the league. Hitting your stride still. You bounced back from your loss of last week, and good luck in week 6, pal. All right, as I was saying, I did mean to, before I left Kenya, actually film something, but I decided instead I should hang out with people in Kenya, because turns out people in Kenya are fun to hang out with, and I didn't get to see everyone on this list. I'm a little bummed that we didn't work it out. I know I only threw out 1 or 2 options there, so sorry about that. When you're doing a course, it's kind of hectic, but don't worry, I will be back so we can say hi. But I'm recording this once again, second week, and hopefully last week I'm back in Geneva with nothing else to do, so I should be able to record early for week 6. But yes, in week 6, it's already out there. It's Thursday night games already happened. Now it's my turn to try and take a swing at our number one. And even though I'm not predicted to do so, at least he didn't have a monster Thursday night. He had some people do okay. Jeff is looking here to bounce back. And so hopefully Tim remembers how IRs work. And right now, Gene's looking pretty good against Marco. But knowing Marco, he'll have about 5 or 6 other methods or other moves to do. Rennie's really hoping here. He came out with a big Thursday night game. He's hoping to take down his first win, and it looks like that one might be tight. And then the Battle of the Kents, which not only is a joke or something I had to say extremely carefully. I said Kent, just if YouTube's watching, note that. Don't ding me. But it's our number 2 and our number 3 going after each other. This would be exciting. Sprint versus long distance. Height versus average height. Kent, you're average. Breshke, I'm talking. I mean, there's nothing average height-wise with Maxon. But here we go. Should be the matchup of the week, but, I mean, who knows? This could be a crazy week. Taking a look, not surprising. Okay, we obviously have 2 zeros to factor us out. Jeff's now taking a run. Everybody else, we're just jamming in the middle, and that's about right. So point values are going to matter. Plus, minus might end up mattering. Who you lose to and who you win to, that's exactly where we want it, right? Every week is going to matter, which is an awesome place to be. As I said, next week should be more on time, so thanks for your patience. I appreciate it. Do note that there is another Sunday night UK game. I believe this one is it Liverpool maybe? I can't remember, but it's in the UK in general, so we do have that one game that goes a little bit early. Everything else should be back to normal, and like I said, we'll be excited to actually follow along, and hopefully you get your updates a little sooner. Till then, best of luck on week 6, everybody.